The COVID-19 crisis poses huge questions for cities. Throughout history, people, businesses, knowledge-producing organisations such as universities, professional institutions, business and investors have been attracted to cities because of the concentrations, the densities, and the flows of knowledge, ideas, and opportunities that urban areas create. The close networks of face-to-face collaboration have enabled this. But all of this is now challenged by a new, dangerous, communicable disease. The requirement for physical and social distancing and the experience of mass working from home poses huge questions for the future of cities, city centres, transport networks, the office. Why force people to locate and coalesce in dense urban centres? Why force them to use public transport to get there when there's a risk of disease and they can work from their own home? But I believe that cities can, will, and must bounce back. That is because it is in cities that we can drive the productivity, the innovation, and the creativity needed to build a stronger economy for the future, and to do so sustainably and inclusively. And I will explain why in this talk. So why is density and face-to-face contact so important? Lots of people, with the advent of the internet, email, advanced communications, predicted the death of city. We would no longer have to come together. We could all work from home remotely. But actually, the opposite has happened. As the economy has become more complex and more knowledge intensive, face-to-face contact has become more, not less important. There's a number of reasons for this, and they're not new. As humans, we are hardwired to tell stories, to build trust, to build relationships, and to do so face-to-face. In his book, Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari tells the importance of how, in the cognitive revolution, people telling stories, gossiping, enabled humans to cooperate and organise in ever larger numbers and to develop new technologies and new systems of organising society. And that process has accelerated in recent years, particularly with the emergence of the intangible economy, which Stian Westlake and Jonathan Haskell have written about. Competitive advantage is no longer primarily gained from natural resources and fixed capital assets such as factories, machinery, plant, premises. Increasingly in the modern economy, competitive advantage comes from intangibles such as knowledge, creativity, software, data, and that makes those knowledge spillovers really important. And knowledge spillovers happen best when people can meet face to face. Look at Arup's office in Leeds. It was built in the 1830s as a flax mill. It then became a distribution warehouse for transport by the waterways, and now it houses a number of professional services firms. It is almost a built embodiment of the growth of the intangible economy. And Bruce Katz has written about innovation districts and about how people innovate today. And he says people no longer want to drive to their out-of-town office park where they keep their ideas secret within their buildings. They want to share ideas in the hyper-caffeinated spaces between the buildings in urban areas. They want to collaborate, they want to compare, they want to compete alongside each other. Smart people want to work close to other smart people. Employers and businesses want to be near knowledge-intensive, knowledge-producing functions such as universities and teaching hospitals. And they want access to a skilled and creative workforce from across a wide area. We see this in Leeds city centre, where the knowledge-intensive business services, KIBS for short, have grown rapidly, and over 50% of the jobs in Leeds city centre are in those KIBS functions, compared to only 25% across the Leeds city region as a whole. And Leeds city centre has experienced very rapid growth in those really important high productivity KIBS jobs over recent years, including compared to other core cities. The transport network has been critical around this. It enables, it supports those densities. It allows firms to access those skilled people from a wide hinterland, and it enables people to access more productive jobs, to be able to move job without moving house. That's why we've seen such huge increases in over the recent decades in rail use into Leeds Station. It's the busiest station in the north of England. It's now used by over 30 million people a year. And that has grown rapidly over recent years. And that growth continued through previous recessions. The nature of clustering has changed as well. We've moved on from the very specialist clustering that Alfred Marshall wrote about to a concept of related diversity, where actually what matters, particularly in cities, is not necessarily deep domain expertise and concentrations in one particular area, but it's about a mashup and integration of different areas of expertise. We see that increasingly in Leeds. The economic success of Leeds in recent years has been built on the back of financial and professional services, and those remain really important parts of the Leeds economy. But in recent years and current and up until COVID, we've seen rapid growth in sectors such as software, radio and TV production and broadcasting, data and technology, professional and scientific sectors, the creative industries. And that diversity and those interrelationships between those sectors has become really important. We see that as a professional services firm located in Leeds. For example, when we needed to solve the challenges of the Grade 1 listed Temple Works building in Holbeck, the structural engineering challenges, we did so by sending drones into the building. We used a gaming engine to build a VR model, bringing together a number of different technologies and disciplines: traditional engineering, architecture, software and gaming, immersive tech and robotics. And that's happening across the economy as a whole. And cities bring those different functions together. Cities also, and business parks also provide the office. And there's been a lot written in recent weeks about the potential death of the office. There's a risk that WFH, working from home, becomes the new normal. The finance teams have got an eye on how they can reduce property costs. Employers mindful of life-work balance are seeing a new future where people work from home much more. And the property sector has been surprisingly quiet, indeed I would say spineless and supine, in fighting back for the future of the office in the face of such fundamental questioning of one of its core products. But I think our experience as an employer, and I think the experience of many others that I talk to, is that the inefficiencies and the problems of mass working from home are becoming increasingly apparent. Lucy Kellaway has written about the importance of the office as a place to learn, as a place to collaborate, as a place to have a separate identity from your home life, as a place that's important for workers' mental health. And we are seeing, as indeed many others are seeing, that those things are really suffering in the context of mass working from home. So I think that offices remain really important. The office will be back, and it's time for the property sector and cities to start fighting the corner for the office. Its function might change in the future. It may be less around providing banks of desks, more around providing space to collaborate, to innovate, and to build relationships. But offices, I think, are really important. I think the third reason why face-to-face contact and cities are so important is it is in cities where we have the best prospects of achieving the rapid innovation to address some of the big societal, economic and environmental challenges that we face, both here in Leeds, in the UK and globally. And those challenges have been brought to the fore as a consequence of COVID, and the need and potentially the ability to innovate rapidly has also come to prominence. Look at the huge acceleration in progress in vaccine development, or the transition to drone technology for delivery, or the accelerated reallocation of road space from cars to pedestrians and cyclists. The crisis has shown we can innovate rapidly across the public, private and voluntary sectors. And actually it's in cities where the institutions and the talented people to enable us to do that are brought together. There's a real focus, and we saw this in the government's R&D roadmap published in the last few days, on a mission-focused approach to industrial strategy. What will be our equivalent of the moonshoot to provide that call to arms, that guiding force, that catalyst for collaboration to drive innovation. Cities also are the home to innovation districts, where knowledge-producing organisations such as universities, such as hospitals, cultural organisations, enlightened developers who are willing to take a long-term view, entrepreneurs, investors, and firms that undertake R&D are coming together in city centres or in well-connected urban nodes. The out-of-town office park, the science park, also remains important, and many of them are also retrofitting themselves to become perhaps a bit more like city centres, with public transport connections and a more diverse mix of users. But we're seeing the rise of innovation districts globally, and also here in the UK. In Leeds, there's a fantastic opportunity around the redevelopment of the LGI and bringing together the Leeds Teaching Hospital Trust, some of our universities and our business base in the city. I think cities are also really crucial to our ability to not only kickstart the economy post-COVID and to create jobs, which will be really important, but in the perhaps overused phrase, build back better, to put in place the foundations for a more sustainable, more productive and more resilient economy for the future. I think it's in cities, and it's because of some of those factors that I've talked about, where we can really drive innovation and productivity. But we can also do so sustainably at the right density, served by public transport, and inclusively creating jobs that are accessible physically, but hopefully also in terms of skills for communities, many of whom, many people who live in close proximity to where those jobs can be created. So cities are so crucial to our economic future. They're so crucial to the COVID-19 recovery. They're so crucial to how we can build back better for the longer term. And I think the disadvantages of remote working are becoming so apparent that in the future we will see an increased focus on how we design cities to enable collaboration, to enable interaction, and to enable us to create and start up and scale up the high growth businesses, the new products and processes that we need to be competitive. The future of cities are not going to be about retail. It needs to be around knowledge intensive jobs and production. I'll end with a historical perspective, because cities and pandemics have a long history. Michael Pye, in his book The Edge of the World, about the North Sea and how that drove innovation, art, civilization, and urbanism, talks about how it was in response to pandemics that social organization, regulation, city planning was introduced, laying the foundations for the success of cities like Antwerp and then Amsterdam. And data has been always important in terms of how cities have been able to respond to public health crises. In 1854, John Snow painstakingly and meticulously mapped the cholera outbreak in London, and in doing so identified the water pump that was the source of that outbreak. And in doing so, led to the introduction of sanitation, of clean water, and the incredible engineering feats by Bazalgette in building the sewage system. In 1842, the Leeds Improvement Act focused on improving the health, the well-being, the cleanliness of the people of Leeds. And in 1869, George Gilbert Scott built the new Leeds General Infirmary, and was advised by a nurse and a social reformer called Florence Nightingale. In fact, you could argue it was one of the original Nightingale hospitals. So public health and cities have always been interlinked. Indeed, the growth of enlightened 19th century city government in the UK was inextricably linked with the desire to improve the health and well-being and sanitation of our cities. But over time, the health system and how we plan and govern cities became disconnected. The health system became fragmented across acute care, social care, public health, and primary care. And it was only recently when public health departments were brought back into cities. But as the UK's government's response to COVID-19 has shown, the relationship between how we plan and manage public health at a national level and at a local level has become problematic. It's become, to some extent, dysfunctional. And data, or a lack of data, and a lack of open data, has been a big part of that. I know one of the straplines for ODI Leeds is open data saves lives. Well, the experience of the past few weeks has shown how cities and local authorities not having ready access to the data they need may well have cost lives. So cities have been able to adapt and change to public health crises in the past, and they can do so in the future. And I think it's really important they do adapt and change in the future. As Ed Glazer has said, we've built the modern world around proximity, and COVID-19 has made the costs of that closeness painfully obvious. We can either reorientate ourselves around distance, or we can recommit ourselves to waging war against density's greatest enemy, contagious disease. In my view, we can, we must, and we will win that war. We will adapt our cities to enable them to thrive again. And that is so important because it is in our urban areas that are so crucial to our economic future.